thank you so much for coming here. We were very happy to see so many registrations. We were very happy that there are so many girls interested to become women in games. We'll try to make this as entertaining as possible, also as informative as possible. And I hope the success stories of these lovely ladies here will inspire you, and we hope to see you in our industry a long time from now. As you probably know from the description of the panel, there's a real inclusiveness problem in the gaming industry. There are only around 30% of women employed in the industry. However, this number, although small as it is, it's actually a bit misleading, because programmers, game designers, game programmers, artists in the industry are way less. So we have percentages like 5% for programmers, when in Europe actually there are over 30% ITC specialists in the ITC industry. So over that in the normal IT industry, and only 5% in the gaming industry. 10% for game designers, artists, somewhere around that. So the inclusiveness problem is real. It's not only because the environment is not welcoming, sometimes it actually is, but I guess it's also a problem of you guys knowing more about the industry and learning about it and wanting to be a part of it. So, as I said, I hope after this discussion here, you'll like it more than maybe you do now. I want to, of course, present our lovely guests here. So we have Franziska. She comes from Germany, and she's a game designer. She'll be able to tell you exactly what a game designer is, and also how she became one. Then we have Nicole Senger Maas. She comes from Canada. She comes from electronic arts, and I guess you or your friends know FIFA, the series. She's the art director. She's the art director of the FIFA series, and she has a lot to tell you about her experience there. Then we have Liz Mercury coming from the UK. She's a Unity evangelist. Unity is an engine which reshaped the way games are developed in the world. And I think she's going to have a lot of interesting things to talk about. And obviously with my co-host, Cristina. Cristina is the co-founder of AMC Romania, the top company producing art services for the entire globe. I'll let them say a word of introduction to you all. And again, thanks for being here. Franziska.
Thank you for the invitation, and I'm really excited to see so many faces here today.
Young faces,
yes.
Fresh faces.
So, like Andreea said, I'm a game designer, and basically what that means is, I mean, it can actually mean many things, but what I do is mostly concepting. So I think about how a game works, what makes fun, how the player interacts with it. So it's a very diverse role actually, because it changes every day, and some people focus on things like balancing, so how an economy of a game works. But what I focus on is really what the player feels, so the user experience of the game. And I guess I got into games by chance. I actually studied game design. But I was never a gamer. I mean, I played games as a kid, board games, and I was obsessed with Sims and everything. But it was never really important to me. And it at some point, I actually studied economics in my undergrad, and I wanted to be a development worker and make the world a better place and everything. But at some point, I realized that those jobs that follow a degree in economics, I find them fucking boring, and I don't want to do that. Like I went into advertising, and at some point I realized, well, you know, I actually want to make games. And it came a little bit out of nowhere. I knew nothing about the industry.
How old were you when you decided you want to make games?
I think I was 24, so I had gotten my first degree. I had started working in advertising, which was horrible, and I started to learn more about games and like the work of a game designer, and I found it really interesting because it's kind of the intersection between art and tech without being either of it. So I'm neither really like an artsy person, nor am I like a nerd, or I don't think I am. But so for me, it was the perfect mix between two worlds, and it allowed me to create experiences, very immersive experiences, and that's the short story.
Hi, I'm Nicole. My background is different from yours. I actually didn't know that I wanted to make games until after I started making games. I didn't know that making games was a thing or was a career option. My background many years ago started in graphic design, and I started working at EA as a co-op student in 1996. And I ended up just falling in love with the industry and with the collaboration. Being an artist and working with engineers was kind of mind-blowing to sort of have an idea for what you wanted to do with your art, and having someone that would say, I can make this even better, that was just really fantastic. So that's what kind of hooked me and kept me there for so many years. So now I've grown to become an art director. I started out as an interface designer, and now, so art direction, it's hard to kind of summarize it, but basically you're responsible for the overall vision of either the whole game or an area of the game. We have several art directors on FIFA. We have a rendering art director. We have a cinematics art director. We have animation directors. I'm responsible for FIFA Ultimate Team, the UI, and then I also do our franchise branding as well. So I have my hands in many areas, but it's the overall vision and sort of determining what that is, and then working with your art team to sort of see all those pieces through. And we have very, very large and diverse artists and art teams, so it's super exciting and never a dull moment.
But what about your work as an interface artist? What does that actually mean? Maybe some of the girls don't know.
So interface design is the menus when you go into a game. So it's on FIFA in particular, we have hundreds and hundreds of screens and different ways to interact with the game. And FIFA Ultimate Team has the interface itself is a very large part of the game as well, and includes different game mechanics. It's almost like playing a game within a game. So it's really all of that, and figuring out. It's not just about art and making something visually great. It's building a great user experience and allowing people to get through that with a frictionless kind of experience.
Thanks.
Hello everybody, I'm Liz. I'm from the Brighton office of Unity in the UK, sunny Brighton by the sea. So I'm a technical evangelist, and everybody always asks me what that means when I pass them my business card. I don't know, no I do. So we're under the marketing umbrella of Unity. I like to describe us as like technical marketing because we're customer facing, we go to studios, we go to events like this, which is awesome by the way, and talk about new features or new tools that are out in Unity. We also have reach in terms of we write blog posts, we do online videos. So it's really a lot about reach and sort of engaging with the community, but also having technical knowledge to be able to create the demos in-house, take new features, run with them, make tutorials on that. So it's a really varied, super cool job. And it was actually it was like kind of by chance that I got into evangelism, a really cool chance. So I've always played games, always. I kind of got into games through horror games. So like the mid 90s and late 90s when like Resident Evil and Silent Hill were out was when I was like, games are awesome. But when I was at school, there was really no games courses in the UK. They were fairly new and emerging, and they were described.
Which is the situation here now.
You see, yeah, and so they were kind of described as Mickey Mouse courses, and my tutors would say, don't waste your time doing those, like get a proper job. So I actually went and did medicine. And I did medical genetics because I'd been playing Metal Gear Solid and I loved all the genome soldiers. So I dropped out after 6 months because I was like, this isn't like Metal Gear Solid.
It's not you.
Yeah, this isn't. I've much like you said, I found it very boring. And I was kind of like, but I want to get into games. How? So I ended up going to a lot of career fairs and to events like this and hanging around after the talks and sort of saying to developers, so how did you get to where you were? And I was actually at EGX one year, which is an event held in Birmingham in the UK. And Alistair, who was the lead designer at the time on Alien Isolation, had been given a talk on how they'd sort of made the alien as organic as it was. And I hung around afterwards and I was just like, Alistair, how do I get into games? Like, I just want to do this. And so he gave me some great advice about university courses, career fairs. One of the pieces of advice he gave me was actually if there's a profession that you want to work on in the games industry, go on the website of your favorite games company, look at the job specs and look at what they need. And you can kind of work your way backwards from that. So I did a lot of that. And eventually ended up getting a scholarship with BAFTA and Warner Brothers to study games development. So once I'd sort of finished that, I had an internship at Warner Brothers and actually worked on their marketing department, which was totally different to what I'd originally done because my background was in programming previous to that. So once I'd graduated from that, the head of evangelism at the time was like, so you have programming experience and you have marketing experience. Have you ever thought of being an evangelist? And I was like, what is an evangelist? And
I'm sure some of the girls are wondering as well.
yeah, so it was a very happy circumstance that I came to be where I am now, and it's great fun.
So what is an evangelist?
So we are, we're sort of like the eyes and ears on the ground. So we're the bridge between community and the development team inside. So while we're out at events doing talks and sharing new features, we're gathering feedback from the community, we're taking that back, and it's just a really organic relationship. We're that organic relationship between community and internal.
And before we go to Cristina, just one more thing, because as I said at the beginning, Unity kind of reshaped the way people get into games, and actually, girls also, and actually Unity is something that enables people with less resources to create their own games.
Yeah.
So maybe if you can just talk a minute about it so that it's clear to everyone.
Sure.
For those that want to do their own games. And
yeah, who here is like creating their own stuff at the moment in their own time, or just one? You're all lying. So Unity is an engine. It's sort of a way for you to be able to create games, but also any sort of like real-time application. So Unity is not just used in games, it's actually used in like architecture, film, automotive, but it's a way for you to be able to like visually create a 3D or 2D application. So you can go to unity3d.com and you can download the personal edition for free and get started straight away. And as soon as you boot up Unity, we have a tab of in-edited tutorials. So you can get started straight away, getting used to the interface and how to bring assets into Unity. And then we have the Unity Learn channel, which is full of free resources of how to get started, sort of regardless of discipline. If you're a tech artist, designer, programmer, there's written blog tutorials or actual video tutorials, all free for you to get started. And there's also some sample games on there too. You can download all the assets for free, pull them apart, do whatever you feel with them. Yeah, and sort of get creating. It's good fun. Do it.
Cristina.
So, I'm Cristina, and I am the co-founder of AMC Romania. And what my lovely team does is we create the actual assets in the games. Assets, objects. Objects, characters, buildings, props. And we do this for the greatest games in the world. I can say about World of Tanks, or Call of Duty, or Spider-Man for Sony. By the way, who's a gamer here? Raise your hand, please. Who's in the games industry? Oh, and who wants to be in the games industry? And I like to ask these questions, this one, the last one, at the end of our meeting here. Okay.
See if something has changed.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we started as a group of young and crazy people, me and my husband and one friend of ours, and we tried to create a game ages ago, and we even created an engine, but we couldn't complete it, unfortunately. We'll see tomorrow that somebody else here succeeded to complete the game, and with a lot of success. During our pitching to the publishers, somebody at EA asked us a question like, okay, you are doing great with your art in your game. What if you are shifting for a few years and try to create assets for our games? And we did that. So that's why we are here. And just wanted to say that almost half of my colleagues are girls, and I'm very proud of it.
Half. Which I guess says a lot about the fact that sometimes it's not only down to top, but also top down. And I guess if there's more women in top level management, it also creates a more inclusive environment. So I would just like to hear from you the answer for a simple question. I guess the question is simple, the answer is not. Why aren't there more women in games? Why?
What's the question?
Why aren't there more women in games, in game development? So why do you think that not as many women are interested in following this career? Is it because they don't know about it, or?
Is there anyone here that would like to share their experience of why maybe they had a bit of an apprehension about getting into the games industry or anything like that?
I just want to say that I've been very interested in the industry, and I've had a lot of contact with it. And what I've noticed is that there are a lot of guys, and there are mostly guys. Cool. Yeah, and it's cool. I'm fine with it, and they're all very lively and very friendly, and it's awesome. But I haven't seen that many girls, and I'm thinking that maybe it's a little intimidating, that there are a lot of guys and not so many girls, and you're like, okay, can I really do this among all these other players? Maybe.
Yes? I don't know if it's related to the culture or anything, but I remember from my childhood, most of the boys in my class, I was interested in games ever since I was very little. Because of my father, he was a gamer when I was little. And when I went into class, my classmates, the boys were the only ones that were gaming apart from me, and they're like, "You're a girl? You don't have the skill." So that kind of put me down, and I didn't I lost interest because I felt like I wasn't welcomed into this kind of community. Um, but then after I grew, I got back into gaming after a couple of years, and I've seen there were more women, but there is kind of still this, not only in Romania, but in the community in general in gaming, that women are not really accepted as being skilled. And I think that makes women hold back from getting into the industry as well, because they don't feel like it's welcome, considering most women would get into the industry first being as a kid.
Okay. Interesting.
I do think that representation and the idea of role models is a biggie, and I think that's why it's so important to do something like this and just kind of show that there are women in the games industry and we are skilled. I think it's really important. And one of, like, from my personal perspective, when I did mentoring, was that there was a lot of women and young girls who were interested in games but weren't sure how what they were studying at school would relate to games. So they'd be doing design courses, but they weren't sure how that would be useful in games, or they were doing programming but wasn't sure how that would relate to games. So I know, like, especially in the UK, there's a lot more work going on about aligning curriculum to what the games development community sort of requires when they graduate. So yeah, definitely representation, and also that matching of skills are two things that
I think that it's a cultural thing. That's my personal opinion here in Romania. So as a little girl, as a little boy, maybe when you have spare time, you are allowed to play games as long as you want. But as a little girl, during my times was, okay, do your homework, do your chores.
Be responsible.
No, maybe clean the house, and then you can go outside and play. But I think things have changed, and I believe that there's an inequality between men and women, boys and girls, and I think it's fine. We are not equal. Just probably for me, it's important to see that inequality doesn't necessarily means inequity. So I encourage every girl here, if they want to follow a career in the games industry, just go for it, because if you want to, you can do it. I have a colleague, a 3D artist. Her name is Vika. She was on maternity leave for 2 years, and she's back now. And she made extraordinary efforts to come back, yeah, and to be again back on track with everything, with the skills, with the technology and stuff. And she's now not only up to par with everything, but she's better, and now she's creating assets for Call of Duty, as I said, and I'm very proud of her. So if there's a will, there's a way.
I'm not sure if it's one of the reasons, but like growing up not playing that many games, to me it was never on my radar that it's actually a career option. And I think or I guess it's 2 points that I would like to make. The first one is that I think there, at least for me, since I don't play a lot of games, I'm not really into game culture, or in like mainstream game culture. I always looked at gamers and didn't quite get it. I didn't get the appeal. I used the word nerdy earlier when I introduced myself, and that's just something that I don't really identify myself with. And it took me a couple of years of like really getting into the industry and understanding that yes, those people exist and they're lovely people, or some of them. But then there's also a whole other field, and I'm personally quite involved with the independent game scene, and it's you can find a lot of different kinds of people, and you will find your people. But sometimes those are not the obvious people that spring to mind when you think of someone that is in games. And I would say, I don't know if I'd see any of us in the street, I would probably not think, oh, she works in games. And I think that's a problem, like it's a mindset problem that we have, that we still have stereotypes in our heads of who is a game designer or a game developer. And hopefully that'll change by panelists like this. And I think another problem that it's a little further down the line though, that once people have studied something and they're about to get jobs, often when you apply for jobs, there is this obsession with people having to love games and everything in their life must be about games. So I had the advantage that I studied game design at a very good university, so that question never came up. But had it come up, well, yeah, I play Candy Crush and that's about it. And I obviously play games for work and I do a lot of research, but I don't spend my afternoons playing games. I'd much rather do other things.
But that's true. But I think that's actually a misconception that happens with guys as well. It's always this conception that you have to really be passionate about games and have been playing games for your whole life in order to be in this industry. But it's actually a very lucrative industry, and it's not only about passion. It's also a business. It's also a lot of technology involved, a lot of art, creative things as well. So it's not only about the passion of gaming in general. This is something that happens quite a lot in Romania for guys and girls as well.
Yeah. One comment. Usually, so in my experience, I went head first. I had no clue what I wanted to do. Looking at my wife and most of the girls that I've been in contact, they have a very planned, in advance, safe way to go through. Like, for instance, in school, I used to copy my homework from girls because they were something like that. And going into gaming, you take a lot of risks. From my perspective, it's not a safe job. Do you think this is also something that...
It might be.
I mean, I don't know any numbers, but I wonder, it's a question in response to your question, but I wonder if in, how do I phrase this correctly, in more developed countries where you have more security, you also have the freedom of to choose more jobs. So like becoming an artist or becoming something more niche is more accepted, where I have the impression that in countries that are still developing, it's often you become a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, because
because that's not a real job.
It's safe, yeah.
Gaming, what?
So I wonder if maybe like looking at like geographical numbers, if that maybe reflect your comment.
I guess that's how it is. So, okay, so if we discussed about why aren't there as many women in games, maybe for the girls here it would be also very interesting to know from you why it is great to be in the gaming industry. So maybe from your personal experience you can share a top 3, let's say, reasons why you think that it would be great for all these girls here to join the gaming industry. And until you think a bit about it, I just wanted to also mention about this thing with being a gamer and a game developer and so on, that actually if you look at the statistics now, there are more women playing games than boys. Than men, and that is also obviously because of games like Candy Crush. So the mobile gaming industry kind of changed that, and for the past years I think this is a very interesting paradigm that girls started playing more games. So I guess this will also help the inclusiveness when it comes to game development as well, because they are more they look at games like something that's real, that's tangible. They know more about it than before. Let's say when I was a little girl, I played 2 games I think, and only for 5 hours tops. like in a year. So that's a very different shift, I guess. So now, why they should be in games?
Okay, so the perks to be in the games industry. So we have free apples in the studio first. Then you can live your passion. So there's a very creative environment. And the third one, I think it's also a well-paid profession. So you can earn a lot of money if you are in this industry.
Which is something that I guess all of you should know, because I've been to classrooms actually with young artists drawing amazingly, and I asked them what they're gonna be, and they said, "Oh, I'm training now to become an architect because there's nothing else I can do to actually survive with my drawings,"
Yeah, so we have
which
to
is
change
a
that.
misconception, a total misconception. So there's real, it's a lucrative industry as well.
So I have sort of similar reasons why I love being in games, and I touched on it kind of earlier, but it's the kind of melting pot of people. I would say that you get to work with smart people, you get to work with talented people, and you get to work with passionate people, and that combination is absolutely amazing. So, you know, touching earlier on we're saying if you have to love games, you just have to have a passion for whatever it is you do, and there's something available for you in games. It covers so many different disciplines and so many different kinds of talents, and it's super motivating, and inspiration kind of begets inspiration. So when you're around creative, passionate people, it really spreads, and it's such an amazing environment in that regard. Another thing that I love is, I mean, working on FIFA is pretty amazing. You know, you in some places you're like a B-list celebrity. I've literally had people kneel down in front of me, like bowing down. In Canada, it's not so big.
Yeah.
So you know, you have people from other places come, and it's pretty interesting.
It's
you
big
know,
here.
What's that?
It's big here.
Yeah. So that's amazing as well. And I think just the opportunity, there's a huge opportunity to grow and develop your skills. Like I said, I started out as a graphic designer and became a full game art director, working with lighting, concepting, animation, visual effects, all that kind of thing. And so you just continue to grow and learn and get better. And that's super exciting about it.
I'd like to echo the point about sort of people in the industry. I think there was a point made earlier about how there are a lot of men in the industry, and that can be quite intimidating if you're new. But actually, it's cool to see guys here in this room, and everybody I've worked with. Yeah, definitely. So when I first started as an evangelist at Unity, it was me and 3 guys, and they were the most supportive, like inspiring and like motivational people I could have worked with at the time. So don't be intimidated by that. There's so many men that are championing this inclusivity. I just wanted to make that point. And just also, if you are a gamer, like being in the games industry, you get to like meet your heroes, which is pretty cool. Like if there's a game that you're into or a genre that you're into, you will like events like this or through your career, you will meet people that you're inspired by and will like continually keep pushing you to like pursue your passion. And I don't think there's anything better than that on a like a day-to-day basis, to be fair.
I really like my job, and I like just breaking down experiences into mechanics. I think that's so incredibly fascinating, and connecting the dots. Like there's nothing I would rather do. Besides that, to me, similar to what the others said, it's the community, it's the people. Not so much my team. Obviously, I love my team, but like the people that, like you guys, that we meet at events. Because I think there's something very special about games. Maybe because it's the stage that the industry is at, but there's a lot of sharing. And especially if you compare it to software development, people share what they're working on right now. Obviously, they're NDAs, so they can't tell everything, but people will try and help you. They will share their success stories. They will tell you what worked. They will tell you what didn't work. And I think that's very special about the industry, that there is, like, we're protective of our babies, but we want you to, you know, learn the right tricks as well. And then the third point is that I really like the process of game development. So you start with prototyping, which is a really messy and wild phase where you're just trying out stuff, and often there's quite a bit of pressure because you want to find that sweet spot and make it fun and make a great game. And often you work in like week-long or 2-week-long cycles. And so there's always something happening, something changing, and you test it and you get feedback and you collaborate with all the other disciplines. And then you move on into pre-production or production, and it's just every phase is so different. And it's just exciting and rarely boring.
Yeah, I guess the diversity of roles in gaming is something very, very important. It's rarely that you can find something that you're passionate about that you cannot actually apply in gaming. So it's rare that you could find something like this. So because we have 15 more minutes, and I hope that some of you have questions. I hope that some of you want to learn more than what we told you now. I want to give the floor to you. So anyone, any questions regarding a particular job in gaming, or something about how you enter the industry, anything that might be of interest to you that we haven't said by now?
Is there at any point in your careers that you felt that you don't have anything more to learn?
Should I expand on that? Absolutely not. Like, part of my job as an evangelist is that when there's new engine features, the evangelists learn it and push out to make the demos. So I'm never not learning, and I think that's the best way to be. So definitely not every day is a new challenge, but a good challenge.
I would say that it wasn't so much that I didn't feel like I didn't have anything to learn, but it was the ability to move into another area. So as I said, I'd started out in interface design and menu design, and I wanted to be a full game art director. And at the time, interface design was, well, that's 2D, and the other game is 3D, and you can't possibly do both of those things. So it was more the management and the culture and the preconceptions of what an artist was and how they could do that. So I'm actually the only artist in EA that's gone from interface design to full game art direction. So, and that was, I sort of felt stalled out for a little while, and then I had to go in and kind of find my own way and talk to other people and kind of evangelize for myself and my skills, and that I'd been trained as a classic artist as well as the graphic design. But once I did that and kind of got my first chance on a small project, it just kind of sort of grew from there. But there are kind of, I think there's still old ways of thinking in the games industry, and if you just kind of speak up for yourself and again follow that passion and be bold with it, you'll find your way.
And I think it's also, if you look at the games industry in general, there is AAA, there's casual, there's indie. There are 100 different types, and for example, I've mostly specialized in match 3 and hyper casual games. But if I ever get bored of that, I could just move into simulation games, and I would start from zero again because it's so different. I could probably also move into a more visual role or a more technical role. So it is like, yeah, it's so fluid, and there's so many different types of games that are very different, that there is always something to learn if you want to.
When did you discover that this is what you want to do with your life? What age, I mean?
Oh, you came with age, yes. Okay, age-wise, maybe this is something that we haven't covered except
24.
22.
I was 27. I did web development before and then retrained to get into games after doing medicine. It was a mess.
I
did lots.
So I was in my 20s also.
And you didn't hear, but I didn't know that I wanted to make games until after I'd actually started making games.
So she entered the industry
Before I knew what it was about.
Yeah.
I just knew that I had a passion for graphic design and started at this company called Electronic Arts. And my brother said, "Oh my God, that's EA! You have to go."
Yeah. And I don't know if you know, but actually EA has a very big studio here in Bucharest. So a large part of FIFA series is also made here in Romania.
And also AMC has a very small studio here in Bucharest. So as a response to your question, because I work with people, it's a never-ending story, and we learn a lot every day. On my way here, I was listening to the radio, and the guy was speaking about an event tomorrow. So the cool daddies, the baby-wearing dads, will get together tomorrow in a park and talk and exchange information about how dads wear their kids in the slings and things like this. And he was talking also about mindfulness. So I was thinking, wow, cool. Leadership and parenting has a lot in common, a lot of things in common. They have a lot of similarities. So it's not about gender here. It's about inclusion and diversity and impact. So maybe we as women, young women, as girls, can be mindful also and have a, let's say, holistic approach on what we want to do in life and how we can impact the world. And we can do this in this industry also.
So any questions from the girls? Yes?
Something. Did you personally had some kind of discrimination issues in your work? Because I personally had those kind of things, being a game developer, the only woman in the firm, and I'm a mother, I'm a wife, and obviously I cannot be a good programmer, because you cannot be all those things, you know? You can do it, but you can't be good. And you are not a gamer, so you can't do games, because you are not a freak, you know? You don't have that privilege to not love something, to be obsessed with something, and to do it good, if you know what I mean. Did you get some kind of discrimination being a woman or mother or something like that?
Yes.
And how do you handle it? Because I had to double my effort in everything I do just to show that I'm good enough in something.
Yeah, but this is everywhere. Yeah, so it's a lot complicated, but there are a lot of walls and bridges maybe that we have to burn. But you know, that's it. We are women, so we have to try harder. Just because, as she said, I speak for myself, because after I go to my office and spend the time with my colleagues, I have to go home and I have another full job with my kids, and that's it.
Yeah, but maybe this ties into the Romanian culture. Maybe this ties into the Romanian culture, and maybe it's actually Eastern European, I don't know, where we have this big thing with the overtime culture, like she said. I cannot be a mother if I work 12 hours a day just to prove myself, and it shouldn't be this way.
Yeah, it's a personal choice. I'm happy with my life.
It's very hard when you do it, and I think she's waiting for a piece of advice into how she can make it, because they don't have babies to, the majority of them in the game development don't have babies to care. Sorry, no offense.
Yeah, I cannot speak for a man. I can speak from my own perspective. So I have to work hard to show excellence in my work, and also I have to work hard at home to have a happy family. So that's it.
So I've got a little bit to say about that from my perspective in North American culture, and absolutely, I think I've faced discrimination. I think again that's to your point. It's everywhere. It's every day. It's a part of your life, and I think earlier in my career I probably experienced more of that. And everywhere I went, I had to reprove myself. So it was, how can you be, my lead? How can you be an artist? I'm better than you. I know that I'm better than you. What have you got to offer? And there were, many times where I'd ask, an artist to do something and they'd nod their head, yeah. You come back the next day and they'd show me something else and it was, what is this? Oh, well, I thought this looked better. Well, you did? I asked you to do this. But if you are good at what you do and you're consistent with what you do, you'll start to earn that. And then there's less and less times that you have to continue to prove yourself. And it's not necessarily the most encouraging thing to say that you have to keep doing what you're good at and kind of push through that. But it helps and it gets better. And I spent, 7 years at EA as a single mother, and it's never been an issue. I didn't feel like, I used to work all through the 24 hours, days, all the time. And then as I kind of, built up more credibility and got further along, I didn't have to do that anymore. And, I kind of set my own boundaries now as far as what I will and will not give. And I find that women, especially mothers, are so productive with the hours that they have while they are at work. They're not sitting around goofing off, playing games at lunch or whatever. They work through their lunch. And you do have to work overtime sometimes, but you can do that and you can earn that respect and you can do really well. Being the only woman in your entire group, I don't know how many people are there. It's going to be a struggle. There's no easy solution, but it gets better as you go from my experience.
And talking about the walls we build ourselves, I guess it's also about us not being shy to know our worth and also express it, and then also about being perseverant. So you have to not give up. That's it. If you're passionate about what you're doing, you have to not give up.
I think it's also worth mentioning that, yes, stuff has happened to probably all of us. I don't have children. I don't work overtime. So for me, those are problems I have not had yet. But then other things have happened to me, comments that were made. But I think it's worth remembering that even if you're the only woman in a team, that you will have allies on your team. And you just have to find them and you have to make sure that they support you. They might be men, but I think that's equally good. So it's just, it's not a black and white. Not all men are horrible people, obviously. Exactly. It's a small minority, and it's worth remembering that even if you get a shitty comment, it's fine to be upset and to feel hurt. But then it's not... There are a lot of people that will disagree with it, and you just have to encourage them to speak up for you, just like you would speak up for them. So I think it's like general human courtesy that we have to give and seek out, even if we're the only woman in the room.
So I want to give an example just to prove the point. Not saying the name of a company, not saying the name of a person, not in gaming. So a company that's outside gaming. There was a problem with a cleaning lady. She didn't clean properly. So everybody went and bought cleaning stuff. And afterwards, the guy that's manager comes to the team and says, yeah, we bought this stuff. The girls will start cleaning the desks tomorrow.
Yeah, but that's blatant sexism. I think that's separate. So,
This should be in general exceptions.
No, what I'm saying, if the girls would have shut up and say nothing and clean, that was a problem. But one of the girls went to him and said, hey, this is now how it works here. We're all partners. We're not cleaning up. Everybody should clean up. And I said, oh yeah, you're right. Let's do that. And he came back and said, yeah, we'll take turns and everybody will clean
I think the girls nowadays know more than to actually accept such behavior. So I think this is a problem that in the future is not gonna be a big problem anymore. I'm sure that you girls here are. Because of you, the future is going to be bright for any industry, and the future is going to be inclusive for any industry. So thank you for being here. If there's any more questions, I would like it to be from a girl, so that don't be shy. I actually found out a statistic that says that women, if they are not 100% up to the responsibilities of a job opportunity, they don't actually apply. And men apply for positions that they're not even half capable of doing. So it's also about, as I said, the walls we build ourselves. So don't be shy, ask questions, learn more, say whatever your opinion is, and just you should be the ones that bring inclusivity to the gaming industry and others as well, other industries.
About
as well.
your abilities, you are probably better than you think you are.
Yeah,
Definitely.
for sure.
And can I just echo the point of sort of saying how you feel? There's this big sort of movement now about sort of, I hear the terms kind of changing people's perspectives. Like if someone says something to you in the workplace that you think is inappropriate, and you say, that's inappropriate, I'm not happy with that. And they go, oh, it's only a little bit of fun. No, it's not appropriate to use that. Like, don't be afraid to stand up for yourself in those situations, because that's something that's personally happened to me, and it was only ever nipped in the bud when I was just like, no, that might be okay with somebody else, but that's not all right with me. So like, don't be afraid to be a bit feisty.
Thank you, everyone. We should finish because it's a bit late. If anyone wants to say anything else,
Sorry.
I want to ask again the question: who wants to be in the games industry now? Oh.
who wants to learn more about it, though? Who wants to research in Google and find out all the diversities of the job and so on? Okay.
Okay.
That's quite encouraging.
I think it's actually also because there's so much happening in the games industry and so much, like it's a very vocal industry. And I think actually being a girl interested in games at the moment, it's a luxury because there are a lot of initiatives that are trying to change the status quo. So I think if you're into games, I really encourage you into girls making games or women making games. There are hundreds of scholarships, initiatives, and like use that chance if you're interested. It's a really good time to get into it.
One last thing. I agree. All the things that we're talking about right now, it's all the past, right? And the future is absolutely changing, and it's changing rapidly, very much so. And I've seen amazing momentum, even like within my own company in the last 6 months. People are absolutely dedicated to inclusivity and diversity, and it's becoming a really, really positive place because people like ourselves have gone in and been vocal and continue to be passionate. So we really want to be opening the doors for you. So you need to just understand that what is available there, and it's available to you, and it's being, handed to you, and please take it with all your amazing talent and brilliance.
Thank you very much. So girls, 2 things: be bold with whatever you want to achieve in life, and second of all, learn more about what the gaming industry is and what the roles are, because I'm sure that whatever you're passionate about, you can transpose it into gaming. Also, you can still be here and find out what's more in the other halls and the other tracks. Check out the agendas. Be here today, tomorrow. This is the place, the time and the place to learn more about the gaming industry. Thank you so much for being here.